I know everyone isn't going to agree with this. I know this is what they call one of those unpopular opinions or whatever you want to call it. But if I'm the Memphis Grizzlies, I'm bringing Santi Aldama back. Santi Aldama is a restricted free agent, and he should be back with the Memphis Grizzlies next season. I'm going to tell you why coming up here on Locked On Grizzlies.
You are Locked On Grizzlies, your daily Memphis Grizzlies podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, everyone, and welcome back to Locked On Grizzlies. I am your host today, Damichael Cole, beat writer for the Commercial Appeal right here in Memphis, Tennessee. Thank you guys for tuning in to Locked On Grizzlies with us each and every single day. Make sure you continue to like, comment, rate, review, subscribe to Locked On Grizzlies. Like, you can get Locked On Grizzlies any and everywhere you watch podcasts or listen to podcasts. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, YouTube. If you want to tune in and watch, we're everywhere like the air. So make sure you tune in and continue to like, rate, review, all those good things with Locked On Grizzlies. Thank you guys for tuning in with us on this Thursday's edition of Locked On Grizzlies. And if you listen to the opening, and I know some people probably looking at me a little bit crazy right now, where you're listening and you probably almost turned it off, but you say, look, Michael is, I like you a little bit, Michael, so I'm going to keep tuning in. And I appreciate those people. If you're one of those people, I really appreciate you, because you know I'm going to have some reasoning behind my thoughts here. So just stick with me. And some of you may say, I want Santi back too. So we're already on the same page. But this episode's not just going to be about Santi Aldama. We're going to talk about all of the upcoming free agents here. Should they stay? Should they go? A lot of important decisions need to be made around the Grizzlies and roster construction going forward this offseason, because the goal is to get this team to the next level, right? 8 seed is not acceptable. 46, 47 wins, not acceptable. You got to win 50-plus games in the Western Conference. It is what it is. It's tough. There's going to be a couple more teams that are going to be really good. But guess what? You got to do what you got to do. You're in the Western Conference. And if you want to compete, if you want to have a chance at a title, you got to keep up, and you got to build a roster that can compete with the Oklahoma Cities, with the Denver Nuggets, and with the Minnesota Timberwolves, Golden State Warriors of the world. But with all that being said, we got to start off with the restricted free agent. In the next two segments, we're going to talk about 3 guys that are unrestricted free agents. So they basically have more freedom and leeway to sign with whoever they want to sign with. But in the case of Santi Aldama, he's a restricted free agent, meaning that if he signs, an offer sheet with another team, the Grizzlies will have a chance. They will have a few days. I believe it's still 3 days, a 3-day window to match that offer sheet. And basically the Grizzlies will say, hey, look, that's too much money. We don't want to pay that much for Santi Aldama. Or they will say, oh, that's nothing. Or they'll just sign him themselves, and we'll see Santi Aldama back with the Memphis Grizzlies. But no matter how this process plays out, I want to see Santi with the Grizzlies next season. I think that there's value in Santi's role. And I know what a lot of people is going to say off the jump. Some of you are going to say, oh, he's too soft, right? Guess what? I'm not going to overly debate that. I watched Santi go to the rim, and he leaves a lot to be desired. I see it all the time. He's very finesse when he's driving to the basket, and he will tell you himself. Like I asked him this throughout the season at times, and he will tell you himself about his and the team's problems with dealing with physicality, because a lot of it is him. You look at when the Grizzlies play some of the tougher teams, some of those teams are going to pull on your jersey a little bit, be a little bit more physical. That's kind of when Santi has had more of his struggles this season. But let's start here. When you think about Santi Aldama, one, we're talking about the idea of bringing him back. I want to make sure that it's clear that we're talking about as a reserve. We're talking about as a guy who's going to come off the bench, who's going to play a somewhat, limited role in a way. And now that we got that part understood, I'm ready to go the next step with it, because Santi is a guy who is going to come off the bench, and you're going to have Zach Edey, Jaren Jackson Jr. That's going to be your starters, right? And as we saw with Tomas Isolo this season, in the last 12 or 13 games that Zach Edey played under him, Zach Edey was averaging over 30 minutes per game under Isolo. So you got Zach Edey in his tenure on Tomás Cicelo, averaging over 30 minutes per game. Jaren Jackson Jr., we know the foul trouble and things like that. It's going to be there, but he's going to play a lot when he's able to play. Brandon Clark is going to be back into the fold if, nothing else weird or wonky happens this offseason. If you add Santi Aldama to that group, to me, you have one of the better front courts in the NBA. You don't have the best. You probably don't have a top 5 one. But when you talk about versatility, you talk about up and down the roster, different guys who can pretty much produce. Santi Aldama, Brandon Clark, Zach Edey, and Jaren Jackson Jr. That's 4 guys at the power forward and center spots who can give you double-digit points on any given night. Any given night. How many front courts in the NBA can you say they have 4 guys at power forward and center that can go for double-digit points and you won't be surprised? Brandon Clark's pretty much averaged it for his career. Santi just had 12.5 points a game this past season. Zach Edey, in the small time with Cicelo, was averaging over 9 points and around 15 rebounds. And he's going to be going into year 2. He's going to be stronger. Jaren Jackson Jr., that's a layup. The question is, can he average 20? We ain't talking about 10, 15 points a game with him. So I could ask you, and I say, look around the league. When you're talking about Santi Aldama in a 3rd or 4th role as a big, he's solid. Doesn't have to be a starter. And again, you're talking about a guy who's going to be 3rd or 4th big for the Grizzlies, just gave you 12.5 points a game on 36.8% shooting, basically 37% shooting from 3-point range. We talked about it the last 3 years, every offseason. We're not going to talk about it this much this offseason because they kind of improved in this area. But a big problem for the Grizzlies over the last few years is shooting. They have lacked shooting. Santi this season helped rectify the Grizzlies in that area with the way that he shot the basketball. We're talking about 37% shooting from 3-point range. We're talking about pretty much 2 makes a game. 1.8 made 3-pointers per game for Santi this past season. And look, he gets them up. He shot 5 attempts a game. But teams respect him in what he's capable of doing from beyond the arc. So he gives you something that you don't have much of. And look, I'm not about to say Santi's defense is good. It's not. I'm not giving him a pass. I'm talking about him in the role of a 3rd or 4th big. That's what we're talking about here. And a lot of times, Brandon Clark's going to close over Santi as that 3rd big because of his defensive versatility. So in a way, we're talking about him as a 4th big, and he works out perfectly in this role to me because of the fact that, guess what? Jaren Jackson Jr. gets handsy. He gets clumsy on defense. You've seen it. I've seen it. We've all seen it. When Jaren Jackson Jr. picks up those 2 quick fouls, I'm okay with having a guy like Santi who has that offensive pop to check in until you're able to get Jaren Jackson Jr. back in the game. As I said, we're talking about 12.5 points a game. We're talking about 37% 3-point shooting. Here's a sneaky stat. That a lot of people, didn't really think about with Santi this year. He was one of the team's best defensive rebounders. Offensive rebounding ain't giving you much. But how many times do we hear Taylor Jenkins, Grizzlies players, complain about the fact that we got to get a rebound on the defensive end to start a possession? Here's a stat for you. This season, of Grizzlies players that played 50 games or more, just to give you 50 games reference points, Ja Morant played 50 games for the Grizzlies. So of the players that played 50 or more games for the Grizzlies this past season, only 2 of them had defensive rebounding percentages of over 20%. 2 players, 20% defensive rebound percentage. Zach Edey, of course, led the team. He leads in pretty much all the rebounding measures, offensively, defensively, whatever. Zach Edey was at about 23, 24%. You know who was second? Santi Aldama. Santi Aldama was second. 20.3% rebound percentage on the defensive end. If you want to kind of widen the number, I think John Conchar was higher than him for a little bit of time, and Marvin Bagley in the small sample size D played. But when you talk about guys who played a lot for the Grizzlies this past season, Santi was basically the second best option you had at securing defensive rebounds. Now, the difference between Santi Aldama and Brandon Clark is you flip them around. Brandon Clark is a monster on offensive glass. Defensive rebounding, that's where some of his struggles came into play. Offensive glass, he was a terror for the Grizzlies this season. So that's a stat that I want to point out. Then I'm going to give you one more, and then I'll wrap this point up. We always talk about how Santi struggles and whatnot. And, rightfully so. No one's talking about it, but I'm going to whisper a little bit when I say this. Santi didn't play bad in the playoffs. He didn't play bad against OKC. We weren't really thinking about it, talking about it much, but Santi played over 30 minutes per game against Oklahoma City. He shot 41% from three-point range, really 41.7%. 2.5 made three-pointers per game. He averaged 13 points, 6 rebounds, 1.8 assists. In other words, he pretty much kept up with his regular season numbers. He didn't fall off against a very physical defense. I thought Sonny played decent. He wasn't the problem. Jaren had some games where he would disappear, and Santi would kind of come in the game and, play well for small stretches. I'm not excusing Santi. Like I said, I know the issues that come with him. I know look, if we want to nitpick the playoff numbers, he shot 42% from three-point range, and he still only shot 47.7% from the field because he shot he shot 55% on twos, which is a good number for Santi overall. But you need to see him be more aggressive as a finisher. He's very nimble for his size, but we don't see that result a lot in getting to the line, finishing through contact, and things like that. That's what I want to see the next level for Santi Aldama. But Santi did progressive things. He averaged career high in points. He averaged career high in three-point field goal percentage. And we're talking about as a third or fourth big. Why not? He played well against OKC. He played decent enough. Any team would take their third or fourth big, and third in this case because Brandon Clark was out. Any team would take their third big, giving you 13 points per game off the bench, 40% three-point shooting, and making 2.5 attempts. Like, who's not going to take that? So I know it's the popular opinion, say, oh, Sonny's not gritty. He's not these things, but he's also a lot of things that the Grizzlies need. And if you take him away, you take him out of the equation, you better replace him with something good. I just don't see, with the contract situations that the Grizzlies have, with Santi being a restricted free agent, and I'll wrap it up on this. I don't see them being able to go to get a player with that type of pop for the minimum or for a second round pick or something like that, because Santi, quite frankly, the market. I've said this a couple times, but talking to people around the league, I don't think there's going to be a great market for Santi, and it's not his fault. It's not going to be a great market, probably because of the fact that cap space is dried up around the league for the most part. Teams are going to have to get creative to go get these restricted free agents and throw offers out there at them and whatnot. Santi's going to be no different. So he might not get a lot of offers where the Grizzlies feel like pressured to, match something or anything like that. His best offer might just be simply returning to the Grizzlies on a cost-efficient deal. So we'll talk more over the course of the offseason of what that potential deal could look like for the Grizzlies. We're coming up here next on Locked On Grizzlies. We got to talk about another guy who was a rotation member for most of his tenure with the Grizzlies. Should they bring him back? Talk about that coming up here next on Locked On Grizzlies. But before we get to that, today's episode of Locked On Grizzlies is brought to you by WayFair. The days are getting longer, the weather's warming up, and people are spending more time outside, which means it's the perfect time to refresh your outdoor space, whether you're working with a big backyard or you got a little small balcony. WayFair has everything you need to make it feel more like you. WayFair's massive selection of outdoor essentials makes it easy to transform any space into your ideal summer setup, from comfy conversations sets to sleek dining tables and outdoor decor. They've got it all, and it's at prices that can fit inside of your budget. So whether you're entertaining the guests or you might just be relaxing solo, it's summertime, you might just want to sit the chair out and read a magazine or what. I don't know how you do it, but you might want to do something like that. Shop WayFair to help you unwind in whatever way you like to unwind. Shop a huge selection of outdoor furniture online this summer. Get outside with WayFair. Head to wayfair.com right now. That's WAYFAIR.com. WayFair. Every style, every home. Go check it out now at wayfair.com. Luke Kennard is a free agent for the Memphis Grizzlies this season, and this is the first time we said that. He was a free agent last year, but it feels a little bit different this time. Feels a little bit different. So before we kind of dive into all the numbers and whatnot, well, before we dive into why it feels different, let's get into the numbers a little bit. And here's the problem. I think the good and the bad. When Luke Kennard was acquired, right? He was acquired 2023, February, and the Grizzlies said, wow, we got a shooter. We got one of the best shooters in the NBA. And he looked like that actually for most of his team. But there's this common thing. My co-host, shout out to my guy Joe Mullinax. He's not here. Maybe we talk about this later when me and him are on the show. But I have a problem with things like Joe says that Luke Kennard's one of the best shooters of all time and things like that. Some of you may agree. I don't. I say what I said. I don't. Here's where I alter the way that's viewed to me. He's not one of the greatest shooters of all time. He's one of the most accurate shooters of all time. Stick with me. So when you talk about the greatest shooters of all time, I'm thinking of guys who, one, are accurate, but two, can shoot from different platforms, off the dribble, on the ball. They play a lot on the ball, off the ball, behind the back, step back three-pointers. They can get their three-point shot off from various different looks. When you see Luke Kennard shoot three-pointers, you tell me what you see. You ain't seeing that many step backs. You ain't seeing him take guys off the dribble, pull back, and James Harden style with it. So that's what separates the Steph Currys, right? Because Curry can do the spot-up three-point shooting just like a Luke Kennard, but he's moving around off the dribble, right? He's put the ball between his legs, and he's going to shoot it over you. He's going to step back. He's going to sidestep like a Kyrie Irving, and he's still extremely accurate in those platforms. We're having this conversation right now about whether Luke Kennard should even be back because despite the fact that he's one of the most accurate three-point shooters we have ever seen, you can make the argument he's the most accurate three-point shooters that the Memphis Grizzlies have ever had. I think that he probably is. I'd say it. You've had Mike Miller, you've had Desmond Bane, but yeah, Luke Kennard's the most accurate three-point shooter the Grizzlies have ever had. But why was he sixth on the team this year in three-point attempts? If you go to three-point attempts per game and you go to the under 50 game sample size, then that moves him down to seventh. But you talk about players that played at least 50 games this season, three-point attempts per game, Luke Kennard was sixth. How does that happen? Granted, he played less minutes than the five guys above him. But granted as well, he's the only one of those six guys who was brought on this team because of his ability to shoot the three-point shot. The Grizzlies didn't acquire Luke Kennard because, he's going to be this great playmaker for us. And they didn't acquire Luke Kennard because, man, he's going to lock down guys on defense and he's going to get some steals. He's going to get some blocks. They didn't acquire him because, he's going to come off the bench and get to the rim. And, they acquired him because he's one of the best, most accurate shooters in the game right now. And over his tenure in Memphis, the accuracy was there. We saw it. Led the league last season. But the looks. We did not consistently see Luke Kennard get the three-point looks. And it often showed up in the playoffs, right? There was a lot of times people would say, where's Luke Kennard in the playoff series? It's because when you play in the playoffs, guess what? A lot of guys have to create their looks. And it's simply harder to just spot up, catch and shoot, things like that. So to give you an example, we just talked about in the regular season, Luke Kennard averaging over 4 3-point attempts per game. And this isn't something that was necessarily new, so to speak. This year, he averaged 4 3-point attempts per game. Last season, 6.1 3-point attempts per game, 39 game sample size, excuse me. And his first year with the Grizzlies, where he played basically 2 months, 5.7 3-point attempts per game. So he went from 5.7 to 6.1, all the way down to 4 3-point attempts per game. But then, that's just regular season. When you do playoffs, first year with the Grizzlies in the playoffs, the 5 games he played in that series against the Lakers, 3.2 3-point attempts per game. Shot 50% from 3-point range when he shot it, which gets to my point, but you only got 3.2 attempts after getting 5.7 in the regular season. Then you go to the playoffs this year. Luke Kennard, 2.3 3-point attempts per game. Now, OKC was tremendous at that this season, taking away your open, easy 3-point looks. They're a very good closeout team. They got a bunch of long defenders. That's when you need those guys who can shoot off the dribble, who can, get past a physical defender, step back, sidestep, and still be accurate 3-point shooters. Luke Kennard, 22% from 3-point range in the playoffs for the Grizzlies, 2.3 attempts. That ain't going to cut it. Simply, that is not going to cut it, and the Grizzlies need better. So it brings us to the question. Like, we just talked about it with Santi Aldama. I said Santi should say, for my answer for Luke Kennard, it's still Luke Kennard. This tenure, this pairing has run its course. Luke Kennard probably should return to the Grizzlies. One, because I just don't get the sense that he's really favoring being back. And this is just me reading the tea leaves. This is not anything that he's told me or organizationally anyone has told me, but it's just look at the situation. Go listen to last year when Luke Kennard was talking to us, talking to me, talking to people in the media. And he was saying, I want to be back. Memphis is where I want to be. Memphis is where I want to be. That was Luke Kennard's message. He said it all summer long, even when the Grizzlies didn't agree to a contract. Remember that whole situation when they declined his player option? His team option, excuse me. They declined the team option and they reworked the contract. But even when they were reworking the contract, both sides were saying, we want to be back together. This time, Luke Kennard was asked about it in exit interviews. If you were listening, you were listening, if you get what I'm saying. And he basically said, I'm going to talk it over with my family and see what's next. And I said, because last year it was talking with family. I want to be here. This is where I want to be. It was a frustrating year for times for Luke Kennard. That I do know from him. It's frustrating at times. He was in the rotation. He was out of the rotation. Played a lot of minutes. Not playing a lot of minutes. Like, it was a frustrating season overall. And I know at times he talked about how it was a struggle to even get in the rhythm early in the season. If you remember, Luke Kennard started the season off kind of slow from 3-point range. And he talked about it just being a struggle to get in the rhythm. The situation is this. Luke Kennard, he's probably going to, he's going to get an opportunity somewhere else. And the Grizzlies, as we've said, we talked about it, I think they have to be aggressive in free agency and upgrading this roster. Big part of upgrading this roster is getting two-way playmakers to me, two-way, a guy who can defend and someone who basically has produced better in the playoffs. Luke Kennard has not produced well in his tenure with the Grizzlies in the playoffs. So it is what it is. It's tough. I think Luke Kennard's a great guy. He's been great for the Grizzlies. But I don't even get the sense that he wants to be back, let alone the Grizzlies are wanting him back as well. So Luke Kennard should not return. And with all that being said, we haven't talked about him much yet, but they got Cam Spencer in the wings, right? You got another rookie who, he's going to be a great NBA shooter. So if you're worried about, they're going to lose a bunch of shooting, Cam Spencer can let that thing go. So make sure you remember that when you talk about the shooting aspect of this. Coming up next on Locked On Grizzlies, we're going to talk about two other guys who are free agents for the Grizzlies. Should they bring them back as well? We're going to talk about that next here on Locked On Grizzlies. Lamar Stevens and Marvin Bagley, two guys who were added later on in the season for the Grizzlies, two guys who basically had their moments, right? Had their moments where they showed the Grizzlies like, we can make an impact here. And they had their moments where it was like, yeah, this is why they're not in the rotation or whatever the case may be. This one is rather simple to me, and it's not because of anything they did. I think Marvin Bagley, when he got an opportunity, he ran with it. I also was one of the people that said Lamar Stevens should have been playing in the playoffs. The Grizzlies were being out-physicaled against OKC, and I said it to him before this playoff series even started. I was talking to Lamar Stevens, and I said, I feel like this is your type of series because OKC is going to be physical. You look at the Grizzlies, how many guys can match that physicality? How many guys are going to respond to that physicality? How many guys can kind of impose their own physicality. Lamar Stevens is one of those guys on the Grizzlies, but we rarely saw him in that series against Oklahoma City. But that's neither here nor there. I'm not trying to harp on that point for too long. The point is, should they stay? Should they go? Simple situation here. And this is something, we'll talk about it more detailed. Uh, but Lamar Stevens and Marvin Bagley and even Luke Kennard, all of their roles in a way kind of tie into what's going on with Jaren Jackson Jr. So, in short, when you talk about the Jaren Jackson Jr. contract extension and whatnot, there's a couple routes the Grizzlies can go with this. We talked about if he makes All NBA, right? He's eligible for the Supermax, and they'll have this big negotiation process where he's going to probably end up highest paid player in Grizzlies franchise history. If he doesn't make All NBA, there's going to be a capped out number that he can get to. But the Grizzlies, if they're under the cap, right? If they're under the cap, they have the chance to kind of restructure Jaren's contract in a way where they can get 10% above what he earned yearly in his last contract, which would put them roughly at I'm spitballing off the top of my head, but I've worked out these numbers already, but it's somewhere around 4 years, 143, 144 million, something like that. Basically a big gap from 5 years, 345 million. But still a pay bump based off of what, talk about a 10% pay bump from his previous contract, and still puts him over $30 million per year, $35 million per year, whatever the case may be. In that case, you would have to, basically lose the rights to Lamar Stevens, Marvin Bagley, Luke Kennard to put you under the cap. So if Jaren Jackson Jr. doesn't make All NBA, then I think this conversation is null and void. We're definitely talking about a situation where those guys aren't back. But yeah, I don't see them being back, not for what they haven't done, but because of the urgency that the Grizzlies have this offseason, right? We talked about how they need to go get proven guys who've been there. They don't have to be star players. I'm spitballing here, but a guy like Kyle Anderson, bringing him in, a guy who's proven, who can step into the lineup, who can be a big voice in the locker room, who's not scared to say something to John Morant, Desmond Bain, Jaren Jackson Jr. You need more of those type of guys. You get those type of guys, you get a strong locker room. You got guys that are going to really bring the best out of your best players. And you got guys that can perform on the floor when the names are called. So, and that's not to say that Lamar Stevens and Marvin Bagley can't. But again, the urgency is up here. The fans need to see. That the front office, with the moves that they're making, it's being reflected the same way. And while it's cool and it's heartfelt a lot of times to bring these guys back that you've already had, it's like, oh, we're getting the gang back together. The gang got to win some games. Point blank, period. If the Grizzlies ain't winning games, then none of that means a thing. Doesn't mean a thing. So that's what it comes down to at the end of the day. That's what everyone's going to be waiting for. Thank you for making Locked On Grizzlies your first listen today. And for your second listen, check out the Locked On NBA Game Night. Every game, every night until an NBA champion is crowned. Get local analysis on a national scale. Find NBA Game Night on Locked On NBA on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. Thank you guys again for tuning in to Locked On Grizzlies with me on today. Make sure you tune in to Locked On Grizzlies with us tomorrow. Me and Joe Mullinex will probably be back together for tomorrow's episode of Locked On Grizzlies. If you want to hear Joe Mullinex saying his Rebecca Black, you got to get down on Friday. He'll be here to do it. And if he's not here to do it, guess what? You got to hear me say it. And I didn't even know who she was before I started doing Locked On Grizzlies. But shout out to Joe Mullinex, because now I know exactly who Rebecca Black is. But shout out to you guys as well. Continue to like, rate, review, comment, and subscribe to Locked On Grizzlies. We're going to continue to put out content. Continue to send us ideas as well. We've been seeing some ideas. We've been planning out some things for the rest of this summer as we get through a long stretch here. And an important week coming up next week. We'll talk about that on tomorrow's episode. But continue to, send us some ideas as well. If there's things you want to hear us talk about on the podcast, and we'll make sure we get to that stuff as well. But until next time, remember that Locked On Grizzlies is free and available wherever you get your podcast. I'm Damichael Cole, and we'll see you on Locked On Grizzlies.